welcome back to First Things First. Welcome to the show. Our favorite guest, former NFL head coach Eric Mangini. What's going on, Coach?
Good morning.
Nice to see you. Love
3 in a row, Jenna.
Yeah, that's right, Nick. Keep
3
it down.
guests in a row. She is called our
Talk
favorite
less
guest.
and think more.
You actually are my favorite
in the moment.
That's not what she said.
Thanks.
Let's talk about the Saints because the Saints are really good. I swear I did not mean to say that.
Please do the highlight.
I swear that's not what I meant.
Mr. Tickles, let me have your job.
The Saints played what looked like a JV opponent yesterday in the Philadelphia Eagles, and boy, they beat them handily, 48-7. We're moving on. For the Saints, their 9th win in a row. Drew Brees continued his MVP campaign, throwing for 363 yards, 4 touchdowns. On the other side, not nearly as nice. Wentz threw 3 picks, just 156 yards as Philly falls to 4-6 now on the season. Their worst loss ever by a defending Super Bowl champion. Here is Saints quarterback Drew Brees on the big win.
We do come out with a lot of confidence because we know the amount of preparation that has gone into that. So each and every time we touch the ball, we feel like we're going to make the plays, right? That we have a good game plan, and that, hey, all of a sudden adjustments need to be made. Hey, we know how to make those. You know, we know where our matchups are. We know, you know, I think there's just a lot of confidence that goes into, you know, each and every time we get the ball. You know, what do we need to do to put points on the board this drive?
You know, I've played a lot of football games in my career, ever since I was a kid, and this is one of the worst losses I've ever been a part of. And yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating all the way around. Offensively, defensively, special teams, we just got beat. Plain and simple, we got beat. I got to be better, and it starts with me, especially offensively, to get that thing going earlier and early and often. We talk about it all the time, and we just haven't been able to get it fixed. So. Yeah, it was definitely a frustrating one today, but at the end of the day, we're going to get out of here, we're going to watch this film, and we're going to go play a couple of NFC East opponents here and see what we're made of.
It's about as half full as Carson Wentz can make that glass. Coach, you look at the Saints, and you want to say, are they the best team in the league? But you have to factor in who they played yesterday and how that team played yesterday.
Yeah, when you're dealing with the Saints, it's difficult because there's so many things offensively that they can do. So it's the shifting, it's the motioning, it's the multiple personnel groups, it's the different formations. And then you heard Drew Brees talk about their understanding of what the defense is doing and their ability drive to drive to come off the field and say, okay, this is where we need to attack next. Combine that with 2 running backs that are complementary, that they can put in and really not skip a beat with either guy, but affect the defense totally different ways based off of their styles. It makes it incredibly difficult. So that part is challenging. Defensively, they're getting better. You know, Eli Apple's playing better than he had been playing. The system-wise, it looks like they're getting more and more comfortable playing together. Now, they also have the advantage of typically playing with a lead or knowing that they can take some chances because they're going to score so many points. I'd say the other thing that's underrated is Mike Westhoff went there about mid-year last year. He's a special teams coach, and he was my special teams coach in New York. He's really, really good at what he does, but he's also a great sounding board. He provides a level of insight and experience that can help any head coach, regardless of how many years they've been there. And I don't think the special teams play really gets talked about enough, and that gives him another significant edge.
Every play with the Saints, especially from a special teams with Mike Westhoff, and offensively, it's so intense because it can be an explosive play. They're trying to attack you. Special teams-wise, Mike Westhoff and Tyson Hill, the quarterback extraordinaire at BYU, like that Sean Payton is in love with. So every time they can get his hands on the football in the offense, so it's special to see. Also from a defensive standpoint, after 10 games, you can say what you want about the numbers, but the numbers would say this is the #1 rush defense. And the reason why is because, man, Drew Brees and them get the lead on you. So they, Dennis Allen, that defense, they only have to defend a certain amount. So they're going to play a lot of nickel defense. They're going to take you out of the running game because with their offense and the threat. So now, how good do you have to be in this NFL defensively? You have to be decent on third down, and you got to be decent in the red zone. And if you don't give up those big chunk plays, you don't have to be a great defense when you have the type of quarterbacks and throwing. So I think the Saints, this is something that is sustainable. I do think that they're the most dangerous team in the NFC because I believe this style for which they adopted last year, they're one of the few teams that I see some carryover. The only reason why they weren't playing Philly for the NFC Championship was because of the miracle that happened there in Minneapolis. I think people forget how their season ended after that first game, Tampa Bay, where they got Fitzmagic. Man, they have continued from what they were doing in 17 over to 18, which is very, very rare in the NFL.
Man, it's hard to blow teams out in this league. It's even harder to blow out desperate defending champion teams. This is the worst loss a defending Super Bowl champion has ever suffered, points-wise. This was, yesterday, all day long, every game's a one-score game. Every game except for the Colts game. The Colts beat the brakes off the Titans, and the Saints mollywopped the Eagles. Hey, Traquan Smith, we're not so comfortable with our number 2 receiver. So uncomfortable bringing Des Bryant, then bringing Brandon Marshall. Traquan Smith, best day of his career, 10 catches, $157, and a touchdown. Drew Brees completed 73% of his passes and lowered his career or his season completion percentage. The Saints, if they had an average quarterback, they would have a pretty good offense given their running game. If they had no running game, they would have a pretty good offense given their quarterback. When you put them together, there are no right answers to this test that the Saints are giving, and they are putting themselves in position to where they're not going to have to deal with the X factor of, oh my God, it's a snowstorm and windy. They're not going to have to deal with pouring rain. Like, they keep winning. Everything goes through the perfect conditions of the Mercedes Superdome, and that nobody wants to go there right now.
We got to talk about the other side and what's going on with the Eagles. I mean, where do you start? Start with their secondary. Breeze through touchdown passes to Carr, Smith, Thomas Kamara, and my friends Marcy and Marnie all in one game. It was kind of impressive. He had their way with them. I don't know, when you look at this Eagles team, where you can, I mean, I guess Carson Wentz is doing okay, but everywhere else.
And the Carson Wentz wasn't good.
And Carson Wentz yesterday was not good. How shocking is it that they have had such a severe and drastic drop-off from last year, Coach?
It's not that shocking. I talked about it in the preseason. I've talked about it all season. When you're in that position.
Coach, you talked about how fun it was there. He was like, watch and see this year. We'll see how much fun that they're going to be having.
Yeah, there's no conga lines at this point. They're not taking shots at the Patriots. And look, it's legitimately something that you have to teach your team how to deal with. And we say it all the time. Deal with adversity. Everybody spends time on that.
Yes.
Dealing with success, understanding how to handle success the right way, that's not an easy skill to master either, and you have to be able to if you want to be able to have sustained success. And every team they play is taking their best shot. Even yesterday, the Saints go for it on 4th and 7 and throw a touchdown. It's a little bit of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little poking.
Oh, yeah. Malcolm Jenkins gets up and flips the bird to Sean Payton. He was like, yeah, hey, how's that Super Bowl crown? How is that defending that Super Bowl championship? I told you guys there would be problems this season based on the organization. They got all types of championship stuff in the locker room. Trying to duplicate the previous season's success in the NFL is harder than any of the other sports. That's why it's very, very rare to repeat. And I think that your stories are so refreshing as far as the time New England, when did they miss the playoffs? When did they struggle? It was after their first success and what you went through and not knowing. You were like, we did not know. And we, man, learned so much in our failure, more so than we did in our success.
And they may end up just like we did. We ended up 9-7 that season. We missed the playoffs, the whole division at that point. The Jets were 9-7. The Dolphins were 9-7, and the Jets went to the playoffs based off the tiebreaker. It could be the same thing in their division, or they could potentially sneak into the playoffs, you know, depending how this all shakes out. But it's this journey that you take after winning the Super Bowl that's uncharted waters for everybody involved.
Here's what's so disappointing to me about Philly. Is they had a perfect line of demarcation in their season where it could have gone one of two different ways. They're in London against Jacksonville at a disappointing 3-4. They get that win. You got that 6-hour plane ride back and then your bye week to say, hey, Everything guys were saying who have won championships was true. We can't just roll the ball out. It is a different team. But despite all of that, we're one game back in our division. Washington at the time was dealing with all their injuries on their offensive line. We come out this next week against a wounded Cowboys team, get a win. We control everything. We can put the first half of the year behind us. And they came out the next week against Dallas and got beat 3 separate times in that football game. And then this week didn't even put up a fight against the Saints. Like, these couple weeks were a chance to get them back on the other track, and they went the other way.
It's impossible. I don't care where you go. You can go in outer space. But if you got a bad offensive line, you got a bad secondary, you're not going to win the NFL. So going to London didn't cure that. It's only, over the bye week what it did, people start looking at it and they're starting to exploit that offensive line. They are going after the quarterback, taking them immediately out of the running game, and everyone's going after the their secondary, and even Malcolm Jenkins, the only starter that they have remaining. Man, this is life in the NFL when you're at the top of the hill.
And it's not going to change. People are going to keep taking their best shot through the rest of the season.
All right, let's take a break. Coach, stick around. Coming up, how was Pittsburgh able to steal a win yesterday? That's next on First Things First.
They got a pretty good coach, don't they, Coach?
He's not bad. Yeah, I kind of like
Tomlin.